Hey, Peter.
Yeah, who are you? I don't recognize
It's
you.
me, Adam.
Oh, hey, Adam.
Magical Adam from Disney World. Hey, is it cold in here?
It's a little cold in here.
Because I notice you have the jazz scarf on.
I do.
Hmm. I'm Adam Maness,
And I'm Peter Martin.
and you're listening to the You'll Hear It podcast for the first time in a while, back at you together again.
Yeah, you look a little nervous. Are you forgetting your lines over
I
there?
have no idea what we're doing anymore. I've been away for so
Those
long.
Mickey Mouse ears, I don't understand.
I was away for 4 days. Nick.
Yeah.
It wasn't that bad. You made it seem like it was such a big deal.
I
But
got a lot. My efficiency on how many digs I got in on you on my little solo episodes. I was very proud of that.
you even took it to the YouTube comments section.
Hey, man. You know,
It's ridiculous.
I bring the battle to them. I don't wait for it to come to me.
I had to go there, and you know how uncomfortable that makes me.
Well, you just didn't know where the commenting was on the page.
I actually didn't. I had to go check it out. But you know, we're back into it now. We're back into it, and you are back. You were just in New York for a couple days.
Yes, and I think that we may talk about that in this week in jazz, right? We're a little off schedule, but we decided to push it up to today, right?
Yeah, it's our monthly edition of This Week in Jazz, and
Or bi-monthly, as it were.
bi-monthly or whatever, however we feel like it. However much jazz news can be accumulated
Right,
to
right.
have an episode, we'll do it.
I actually had a request that we start talking about some actual Utah Jazz basketball news, but I don't know if that'll bring us.
I'm down, man.
They've been playing really good, so they were good 15 years ago.
I was gonna say, is Karl Malone still on the
No,
team?
Karl Malone is not there. John
Dang.
Stockton. There's pick and rolls, but neither one of them is involved. But we have so much news actually this week.
Yeah.
That this is a big week in the kind of jazz industry.
Well, I know you were part of a jazz congress.
I was, although the federal government is currently shut down, the jazz government is up and operating. Is not shut down.
It never closes.
It
the
never
jazz
closes.
Government.
Yeah. So the Jazz Congress, I believe this is the second annual.
It is.
Occurred at Lincoln Center in New York. The last 2 days, and I was attending, representing Open Studio, and was part of a panel discussion on online jazz education. That was along with the representative from Manhattan School of Music, Stefan Harris, the head of the jazz program, and Amanda Monaco, wonderful guitarist from Berkeley,
Cool.
who has done some amazing online videos for Berkeley.
And they let our little ragtag operation in on this
They
panel?
did. We slipped in, and we had a great time and met a bunch of nice people. And also, I attended some really informative jazz congressional events as well.
Did you guys pass any resolutions or any laws, anything?
I did see Winton walking one of the back halls with a gavel and a robe, but he was a little sheepish about actually putting them on. So,
By the way, our friends over at Jazz Memes
yes,
did a whole jazz meme thing on the Jazz Congress, and
Yeah.
they've banned, I don't know if you heard this, but the Jazz Congress banned jazz scarves.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
But that was done after, because it was cold. It was cold. I saw a lot of jazz scarves.
That's not even a jazz scarf. A jazz scarf has to be much brighter in color.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like Jeff Goldblum. We got to find some pictures of him
Oh,
for
he
jazz
definitely
scarf.
has some great jazz scarves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's talk about the Jazz Congress because, like you said, this is the second one. I remember when this happened last year too. It's an interesting idea. It seems so conservative in the in the realm of jazz, which is
Oh, and it was. Oh, sorry. Did I say that?
yeah. I mean, it just seems like the idea seems conservative and institutional in a music that traditionally has not been. But I know that's kind of Lincoln Center's thing, is to institutionalize it, on the level of classical music or something
Well,
like
on
that.
several levels, it felt institution. It was in an institution, and while I was there, I felt like I was in prison. So I felt institutional. No, I'm just kidding.
No, it was nice for them to have us there and have some.
No, it really was,
yeah.
actually. And look, this is the thing. We've talked about this before, the double-edged sword of institutionalizing this music. I mean, we need to do it in order to push things forward. And look, we here at Open Studio, and possibly even here at the You'll Hear It podcast, we've possibly been accused of this ourselves, because I mean, we've kind of institutionalized things. Anytime we say, okay, here's a course,
Yeah.
and this is the way to do it,
Yeah.
and this is what we believe.
Yeah, we don't have clean hands on this issue at all.
Yeah,
you're right.
yeah. But I mean, I have to say that, well, for one thing, Jazz and Lincoln Center they hosted it, but they really let in a lot of different ideas. It was not as banning of ideas as it may have seemed, even if you looked at the list and the general attitude. And I talked to several of their kind of representatives of representatives in Congress, and really their attitude was about they want to get more people involved in this. It's open to everybody, and it's young still. So I think people shouldn't be afraid. I mean, we're going to tease it because this is a podcast, and we are we want people to love us basically and to listen to us.
No, but big institutions, always could use a little bit of ribbing. Always could use a little bit of shade thrown on them.
Yeah.
I was Senator Kareem Abdul-Jabbar there. I think I saw a picture of him.
Oh, I didn't see it. Was he there?
Yeah, I think he gave a keynote.
He's so easy to miss in a crowd.
He's such a great. That's like my number one favorite jazz fan is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah. No, he's
great to hear him talk about anything.
Great.
It's interesting with the Lincoln Center thing because I've been reading Nate Shanen's great book, Playing Changes.
Yes. I got to read that.
You got to check it out, man. And I encourage all of our listeners to check it out. It's all about.
Hurry up and finish it so you can give me your copy.
I will. I'll give you. I have a used hardcover that I'll give you.
Oh wow,
for sure. It's one. You know what the great thing, and I think we talked about this a little bit, but what I'm loving about it is, in the era of Spotify, I can just like read and listen to what he's writing about. But it's all about jazz in the 21st century. But he kind of starts. Explaining what happened at the end of the previous century with you and your generation of folks in the 90s, the Young Lions generation. Yeah, but even before that, with the kind of the start of jazz at Lincoln Center and that first institutionalization of jazz. And what I think we take for granted, especially folks who are a little skeptical of this kind of institution, is that jazz was not given the due, even up to the 80s, that it deserved.
That's right.
From a lot of the artistic institutions,
yes,
including Lincoln Center. And it took someone like Wynton, who happens to be a phenom at both jazz and classical music, for someone to say, well, if you do it, we'll consider doing this thing of putting it in the concert halls.
Right.
Because it wasn't really there on the same level as the classical stuff.
Yeah.
And we know it deserves to be there musically. I mean, a lot of different kinds of music deserve that same kind of respect. But it's interesting to read about, hearing the old critics or the old guard in the 80s, in the early 80s when this was going down, talk about jazz in a way that's like, oh, no one would ever talk about jazz like that anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, and I think too, and I don't know if Nate gets into this much in the book, but I was reminded at the Jazz Congress in one of the sort of keynote panel discussions that Wynton was involved in that I saw at his ability to make an institution and to bring jazz in as cool as possible as you can within an institution.
That's true.
And probably cooler and hipper than anything's ever been brought into a Lincoln Center or a Kennedy Center or a Congress or whatever. He's really good at that. I mean, he did pull out like a 3-page typed up diatribe on like the science behind what is swing and what isn't. But he even made that kind of cool when he went. I mean, everybody was like, "No, you didn't." Like when he pulled this page out, and no one else had like printed things. But I mean, even that. I mean, it's kind of a hip way that he does it. So hats off to him. And you know what? He said something. And this, I was just trying to look up the name of it. It was called Jazz, Swing, Race, and Culture. And I know if you want, I believe you can either already look at it or
it's still on the Jazz at Lincoln Center Facebook page. I watched it the other day.
Okay.
Very, very interesting. Wynton, Christian McBride.
Yeah. Terry Lynn Carrington. Nicholas Payton.
Someone else.
Myra Melford.
Who I didn't know her music, but it's good.
It's really good. Yeah. And it was moderated by and you said Christian McBride, right?
I said Christian, but
Andre Guest.
Yeah, it was moderated by our friend Andre.
Yeah, did a great job. But I mean, Wynton said something that during that panel discussion that I think was great. He said, "Look, we're going to disagree on different things, and that's healthy.
Yeah.
That's healthy from the music." So I think people don't give him enough credit for bringing in diverse opinions. And what he said was, we're all trying to get to the same thing, which is get jazz out there. Now, some people don't even agree if the word jazz should be used that were on that panel, so that was another interesting kind of thing. But I mean, there really was, in general, a very good feeling about like we're all here for the music, and it was fun to be around just so many people that I kind of knew, and I was like, hey, how you? A lot of musicians, a lot more musicians than I was expecting. So that was really nice to see musicians part of the process, not just like industry folks.
Yeah.
Love them too.
Well, I'm going to Gen this week, and I think by the time this airs, I'll have been back to Gen.
Yes.
But there's going to be a lot of musicians, but also a lot of industry folks. So I'll let you know how that goes.
Exactly. I think it's going to be a lot of the same people. I mean, a bunch of people. Yeah. I think it's bigger. I think Gen is bigger probably, so it's going to be more people.
Can I get your congressman credentials?
Yes, of course.
I don't know if that carries any weight at Gen, but it's Jazz Congress.
Well, it may.
Yeah.
So I look forward to hearing about that.
Yeah.
And I guess we should say, in case this does, maybe it will be heard around the time of Gen, folks could stop by and see you, right?
Yeah.
because you're repping Open Studio and all things. You'll hear it as well.
Yeah, if this does get aired before, come by and see us at the Open Studio booth, and we have some good free stuff, swag and whatnot, deals.
Oh, really?
Yeah, offers.
This, by any chance?
We might have some T-shirts.
You'll hear a T-shirt,
Some
Okay.
stickers. But so getting back to that discussion on swing and race and
Yeah.
everything between Winton and those heavy cats that
Yeah.
were on that panel, I watched most of it, and it's honestly interesting to hear everybody's. These are all obviously incredible, legendary musicians,
Yeah.
and they disagree to an extent
Yeah.
on swing.
Yeah.
And that just shows you what swing is and isn't.
Yeah.
And that it is not definable, no matter how many pages of
I know.
definition.
Yeah.
It really isn't, because it means something different to everybody.
Yeah. Well, and I think two things, and in a 1 hour or whatever it was discussion, you're never going to get to the bottom of all this. But there was really, as it pertains to swings specifically, there was two different issues, as I recall, that were sort of being debated or presented, and that is it jazz if it doesn't have swing in it? There was that was touched upon. And then there was the what is swing and what constitutes swing. And what was cool was the different panelists did have a divergence of opinions and a diversity of opinions on what swing was. There was an agreement that they came from bang, dun, dun, dun.
From the 6/8.
Yeah. But then somebody brought up a great point. I think it might have been Nicholas that, early New Orleans jazz, and even when we're talking about like King Oliver and Jelly Roll Morton and early Louis Armstrong, no one could say that wasn't swinging, but that actually didn't have that beat.
Rhythm. Yeah,
It maybe
yeah.
had a precursor to it, but there's other origins. But after they got into it, it was kind of like somebody said, I think Christian said, he's so good at kind of summarizing things, and he was just like, well, it's a lot easier to talk about what's not swinging than what is swinging.
Yeah.
And that's true.
That is true.
That is so true.
Because it's swing is like it when you hear it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's different or there's a spectrum for different people for that. But
Yeah.
it is one of those things that you definitely know it when you don't hear it.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
you definitely know when something is not swinging.
And I think that they didn't get into this, but I realized like how much an important part of jazz and jazz industry and musicians and people that really know the music and either play it or are critics of it or whatever is that we're kind of tastemakers in music in general, and people look to us in that way. And I heard that from some other people that were there that were not as much a part of the jazz world, but are kind of a little bit part of it. And so when we get into a thing, when Christian will say, well, like James Brown, that's swinging to me because he loves it so much and he can hear the connection. I mean, is it technically, if you put it into an algorithm that analyzes the 6/8 feel, whatever, swinging? No.
Yeah.
But it's all about that spirit of it. So the swing and jazz and creative music, I think that there is a bigger umbrella. Christian said a term in another panel when they were talking about Newport Jazz Festival that I love, which is jazz adjacent. And this is the thing, Jazz Congress, and to Jazz Lincoln Center's credit, they allowed that to be said many times. He was talking about, because he's the artistic director, and they were saying that him and some of the other people that decide who's going to be on the program, they talk about, well, we have jazz and then we have jazz adjacent.
Jazz adjacent.
Yeah. Like you can't go totally away from
Hold
jazz.
on, I got to write that down.
Because there was a big, one of the first headliners that he booked 2 years ago when he first got the gig was The Roots.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, that's not jazz. Even George Wein was just like, this is going to kill the festival.
Come on.
But he also had, who was George Wein talking about? Was it Ray? Chuck Berry, St. Louis's own Chuck Berry.
Definitely
in
not jazz.
1968. Yeah, he got a lot of flack for that. But it's jazz adjacent.
Jazz adjacent for sure. And that's super interesting. Hey, and for all our Open Studio members, if you're like an all access pass member, if you have access to Christian's course here, he actually has an episode called a lesson called Different Grooves, where he breaks down Bootsy Collins. I think it's a Bootsy Collins bass line on a James Brown tune and talks about its relationship to jazz and swing and how it fits in. It's really fascinating to hear him talk about anything, but especially that.
Well, and highly recommend, and it was great being there too, because I got so much great feedback from members, and also You'll Hear It fans.
They're You'll Hear It fans at the Congress?
They absolutely. They slipped in the back door, but
of course.
a lot of awareness.
Scoundrels.
So that was fun. People really loving it. People are bored out there, I guess. No. People are loving it, but no, it's a great point you make too. The Christian McBride. I think all our courses can be of interest if you're not playing that specific instrument, but Christian's especially, because he's just talking about music.
Yeah,
let's talk about some music.
So great to hear. Yeah.
And of course, it's bass centered, but the All Access Pass is, shameless plug, a great way to get into that.
Definitely.
Yep.
It's dare I say, a magical way.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm still reeling from my Disney experience. It's good to be back, man. It's good to be back.
It's a small world after
It's not quite as crowded in here as it was at Disney.
Is Space Mountain still open?
It is. I took my my 9-year-old daughter on Space Mountain.
Fun fact: little Peter Martin, at age 4, I believe, was one of the first riders of Space Mountain.
You're
in
kidding.
1974, 1975.
Age 4?
I think so. 4 or
That's
5.
young
Yeah.
to go on Space
I
Mountain, man.
was
That is a
young.
crazy, scary ride. Even right now, it's all in
Yeah,
the dark.
I'm
and,
still terrified. I still hate my parents because of that.
man.
Opening weekend. I don't know if you know this while you were gone on vacation in sunny Florida, but we are officially a 5-star podcast now. Did you know that?
Wait. So we lost 2 stars. Is what
We
you're
kind of
saying.
did. Well, with our listeners, big shout out to YouTube. And well, no, those are the watchers.
Yeah, well,
actually.
let's talk about listeners.
Big shout out to the podcast listeners. We've always been 7 stars, of course,
Yes.
officially.
in the hearts
unofficially,
of our
yeah.
of our glorious
With
listeners.
the continuing breakage of the Apple reviewing system, we're only 5 stars. But before this, we were always like 4.9. And this is actually something I'm very proud of for us. I don't even know if we've talked about it. We've had a number, like over 100 ratings and reviews.
107.
Okay, so you're up on this.
I might follow closely.
So that's a lot of reviews for an 11-month-old podcast, and every single one of them, correct me if I'm wrong, has been 5 stars. Although many of them were actually 7 stars because they added the 2 stars in the description. But
Steve Jobs would let that count.
Steve
but
Jobs,
he's the guy, not happening.
He's R.I.P. Steve S.J. So 5 stars officially on the Apple system, except one person early on gave it 1 star. Was that you?
No.
Was that you, Andrew? Okay, it wasn't
I think
Andrew.
it was probably my parents.
There might have been a mistake. It might have been a mistake. But because of that 1-star review, we'd always been in that 4.9. But now we finally pushed it over with enough 5 and 7-star reviews that were officially 5-star reviews.
Crushing it, buddy.
Thank you
Crushing
guys
it.
so much for that. And thank you to the haters for not putting any reviews. You just stay away, which is what we like. And I don't know. Is there anything else we got?
That's it.
So you'll hear it.